The 2011 Tour de France was the 98th edition of the race. It started on July 2 at the Passage du Gois and ended on the Champs-Élysées copywriters in Paris on July 24. The cyclists competed in 21 stages over 23 days, covering a distance of 3,430 kilometers. The route entered Italy for part of 2 stages, including an overnight stop. The emphasis was on the Alps in 2011, as it was on the Pyrenees in 2010, commemorating the 100th anniversary of those peaks first being visited in the Tour. The Col du Galibier was visited twice during the race, and the 18th stage was the first time the peloton finished on the 2,645-meter pass. It was the highest summit finish in Tour history, beating the finish of the Col du Granon, during the 1986 Tour. For only the second time since 1967, the 2011 Tour started with a mass start stage instead of a prologue, the last occasion being in 2008. Australian Cadel Evans won the race, having gained the lead in a time trial on the penultimate day. He became the first Australian to win a race, and at 34, the oldest post-war winner. The de facto winner of the previous edition, Andy Schleck of Luxembourg, was second, and his brother Fra-Currency N.K. Schleck third. Mark Cavendish was the first British winner of the points classification, Pierre Rolland won the young rider competition, and Samuel Zah Nchez of Spain won the mountains category. Rule changes. New rules were adopted for the 2011 Tour regarding the points classification and King of the Mountains competitions. Previously, stages classified flat had 3 intermediate sprint points worth 6, 4 and 2 points to the first 3 riders across the line. Starting in 2011, flat stages have just 1 intermediate sprint, but it is now worth 20 points to the first rider across the line, and the first 15 score points. The intention is to have green jersey favourites needing to sprint twice during the day to score well. Points awarded at the finish of flat stages also increased, from 35 points for the winner in 2010 to 45. Medium mountain stages award 30 points to the winner, high mountain stages and the individual time trial 20 points. Previously in the mountains classification, any all-kata copyright gurry, first category, or second category climb awarded double points if it was the last of the day. In 2011, only the summit stage finishes awarded double points, specifically stage 12 ending at Les Ardèdens, stage 14 at the Plateau de Bile, stage 18 at the Col du Galibier, and stage 19 at L'Alpe d'Huez. Previously the first 8 riders across a first category climb scored points, as well as the first 6 across a second category and the first 4 across a third category. The new points schedule for the mountains classification is, climbs rated all-kata copyright gurry 2016 12.84 and 2 points awarded for first 6 riders to reach the summit. Category 1, 10.8642 and 1 points awarded for first 6 riders to reach the summit. Category 2, 5.32 and 1 points awarded for first 4 riders to reach the summit. Category 3, 2 and 1 points awarded for first 2 riders to reach the summit. Category 4, 1 point awarded for first rider to reach the summit. Early analysis led to speculation that the mountains classification winner would be more likely, under this system, to be a general classification contender than in years past. This speculation proved accurate, as Samuel Zah Nchez, who finished 6th in the general classification, took the polka dot jersey, and the top 3 finishes in the GC were in the top 5 of the mountains classification. Teams. All 18 teams in the UCI's Pro Team category were entitled, and obliged, to enter the race. 4 UCI professional continental teams, all French-based, were also invited. A Euro-invited pro-continental teams. Pre-race favourites, 2010 winner Alberto Contador was suspended from cycling during a doping investigation from September 2010 to February 2011, during which time 2010 runner-up Andy Schleck was regarded as the favourite. When the suspension was lifted, Contador declared his desire to compete in both the Tour and the 2011 Giro d'Italia, which he went on to win. Of the others listed among the favourites, Denis Menchev is a member of the GX TMC team, who were not invited to participate. Race summary: Classics specialist Philippe Gilbert took the first yellow jersey, winning the opening stage in the Vendée Copyright E, but on the second day Garmin Server Copyright Low were the fastest on the team time trial, allowing Thor Hushovd to take the race leadership, which he retained for 7 days. The first week and a half was notable for the number of crashes involving high-profile riders, with Andreas Klapp-Paragraph-Den, Bradley Wiggins, Alexander Vinokurov, Janis Brukhovia, Chris Horner and Jurgen van den Broek all having to withdraw injured, while Robert Gesink, Alberto Contador, Samuel Zahr Nchez and Levi Leipheimer all lost considerable amounts of time and condition due to falls. There was controversy when Nicky Zarensen was struck by a motorbike carrying a photographer, and Johnny Hoogerland and Juan Antonio Fletcher were injured after an incident with a television car. A breakaway on stage 9 saw Thomas Voeckler gain the overall lead, which he kept, contrary to expectation, through the Pyrenean and all but one of the Alpine stages, and for 10 racing days in total. The key time differences between the riders who eventually took the top 3 places in the general classification, Cadel Evans of BMC Racing Team, Luxembourger Andy Schleck, and his older brother and Leopard Trek teammate Fra-Currency NK, occurred on stage 16, when Evans gained 21 seconds on Fra-Currency NK Schleck and 1:09 on Andy on the descent to Gap in wet conditions. Stage 18, when a 60 km breakaway by Andy Schleck gave him an advantage of more than 2 minutes at the highest stage finish in Tour history at the Col du Galibier. And on the penultimate day, when Evans came second in a time trial and beat the Luxembourgish pair by more than 2.5 minutes to secure victory. Both Andy Schleck and Evans wore the yellow jersey for only 1 day each, Schleck for the time trial, and Evans on the final, largely ceremonial, stage in Paris. The stages that were suited to sprint finishes were dominated by Manx sprinter Mark Cavendish, who won 5 stages, including a record 3rd successive victory on the final stage on the Avenue des Champs Élysées copywriters in Paris. In doing so, he won the points category, ahead of Jose copyright Joaquin Rojas and Philippe Gilbert, becoming the first British rider to claim the Maillot Vert. The mountains category was won by Spaniard Samuel Zahr Nchez, who had a win and 2 second places on the 4 mountain top finishes. Andy Schleck finished second in that category, with Belgian Gel van Endert third. Pierre Roland won the young riders category, largely by virtue of positions he attained in supporting his team leader, Voeckler, during the time he held the yellow jersey, but he also earned a stage win on the prestigious climb to Alpe d'Huez. Stages. Classification leadership. There were 4 main classifications contested in the 2011 Tour de France, with the most important being the general classification. The general classification was calculated by adding each cyclist's finishing times on each stage. The cyclist with the least accumulated time was the race leader, identified by the yellow jersey. The winner of this classification was considered the winner of the Tour. In 2011, there were no time bonuses given. Additionally, there was a points classification, which awards a green jersey. In the points classification, cyclists get points for finishing among the best in a stage finish, or in intermediate sprints. The cyclist with the most points led the classification, and is identified with a green jersey. There was also a mountains classification. The organization categorized some climbs as either or Carter copyright Gurry, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th category. Points for this classification were won by the first cyclists that reached the top of these climbs, with more points available for the higher categorized climbs. The cyclist with the most points led the classification, and was identified with a polka dot jersey. The 4th individual classification was the young rider classification, marked by the white jersey. This classification was calculated the same way as the general classification, but the classification was restricted to riders who were born on or after January 1, 1986. For the team classification, the times of the best 3 cyclists per team on each stage were added. The leading team is the team with the lowest total time. The riders in the team that lead this classification were identified with yellow numbers. For the combativity award, a jury gives points after each stage to the cyclists they considered most combative. The cyclist with the most votes in all stages leads the classification. Notes: in Stage 2, Cadel Evans, who was second in the points classification, wore the green jersey, as Philippe Gilbert held the general classification as well as the points classification and the King of the Mountains classification. Thor Hushovd, who was third in both the general and points classifications, sported the polka dot jersey. In Stage 3, as Philippe Gilbert held the points classification as well as the King of the Mountains classification, Cadel Evans, who was second on the only hill yielding points to that stage, wore the polka dot jersey. After Stage 9, both Juan Antonio Flucher and Johnny Hoogerland were awarded the red number for Stage 10. They received the Combativity Award after Stage 9 for finishing the stage despite being sideswiped by a television car. Flucher refused to accept the award on the podium after the stage. Hoogerland, having already been up there to receive the polka dot jersey, did take the award. Final standings: after the race finished, the results from Alberto Contador were removed. Contador had originally finished in 5th place, 357 inches from Evans. In the points classification, Contador was 10th with 105 points, and in the mountains classification Contador was 6th with 51 points. World Rankings points: the Tour de France was one of 27 events throughout the season that contributed points towards the 2011 UCI World Tour. Points were awarded to the top 20 of finishers overall, and to the top 5 finishers in each stage. Only riders on UCI Pro Tour teams were eligible to receive rankings points. Prize money: in total, more than $3.5 million was distributed during the tour. Initially, each team received a $51,243, while each team with at least 7 riders finishing the tour received a $1,600 per rider. The winner of the general classification received a $450,000, with smaller prizes for each finishing position, down to a $400 for the last rider. The stage winner was awarded $8,000 on a normal stage and a $10,000 for a time trial. The money gradually decreases, with the 20th finisher receiving a $200. The first person to cross the intermediate sprint wins a $1,500. Money is also awarded for crossing the categorized climbs, for the best young rider of each stage, the most combative rider, and the best team of the stage. 2 other special prizes were awarded. The first to ascend the Col du Tourmalet and the Col du Galibier received the souvenir Jacques Godot and the souvenir Henri Desgrange respectively. Each prize awarded a $5,000. Doping cases: after the 5th stage, Alexander Kolunov tested positive for hydrochlorothiazide. When the news came out, he withdrew, and his results were annulled. In March 2012, the CAS decided that Kolunov would only receive a warning for this, and no suspension, because his use of the drug was justified by medical reasons unrelated to performance. All other doping tests were negative. References: external links, official site, full results for each stage.